is, and there you are. Hello, I'm Charlie Simons, your host here on Do Not Talk, talking about the two things you're never supposed to talk about, religion and politics. That's what we do. I am asking you to, first of all, if you've never seen Melanie Collette before, Money Talk with Melanie. Man, when I first met her, she was on Newsmax a lot as a featured guest, and I always loved the things she would say. She'd encourage me, she'd educate me, and she's big on how to negotiate through what's going on now. How do you negotiate these waters and try and keep your money, not only keep it but grow it. Kind of important. And so I love her advice. And the first time I met her was through Facebook. I just thought, well, I'm just going to look her up, see if she'd be on my little old radio show in Sacramento, California. I mean, she's big time. I might not ever hear from her. And a lot of people, when I write them that way and I find them that way, I never hear anything back. Or I get some kind of form response, please contact our people. And then I contact their people, and then I never hear back from them either. Because I'm not big. I'm not a big guy. I'm not Steve Bannon. I'm not the War Room. I'm not Joe Rogan. I'm not one of those guys. So when Melanie got back to me, she goes, yeah, sure, I'll come on. Really? I tried not to act like I was some kind of country bumpkin going, gosh, that's great. Thank you, Melanie. But that's how I felt. And she was a kick. I had her on the radio more than once, and I've had her on this show, I think, only one time. And that is going to be remedied today. It's been way too long for me to have Melanie Collette on this show again. It's about dang time, especially now with what's going on. Digital currency, total banking collapse. Yeah. What do we do? Take everything out, put it in a coffee can, and bury it in the backyard? What do we do? I'll be asking her those questions and a lot more. And they just had a big Trump rally where she lives in her district. And I can't wait to find out what that was like. I've been to a Trump rally, but I've never been behind the scenes to see what happens, how it all comes together. There are people on the left, especially in the media. I keep telling you, please, with the exception of Melanie on Newsmax, stop watching mainstream media. You're not getting information from there. You're getting some. Fox News is, wow. When the whole trifecta of Dan Bongino, Steve Hilton, and Tucker Carlson being removed from on air there, I wrote them off. That was it. I was all about Newsmax. Before that, I was big into One America News, but I don't know about your platform or whatever cable system or satellite system you have, but on mine, they pulled it. They pulled it. Can't even find One America News. You have to go online. So I'm encouraging you to go to alternative media. And I've been in the media my entire adult life, and I am so glad to be part of what everyone's calling alternative media. Great. Absolutely. And you can support it by supporting the companies that advertise with us. And that's MyPillow, mypillow.com/LEE. That's my middle name as a promo code that can save you up to 80% off. MyPillow.com/Lee. MyPillow. Oh, there's like 100 different products on his online store now. Mike Lindell, a true patriot, a true American hero, has put his own fortune on the line and has been spanked by the left hard, including the FBI showing up and taking away his phone, all that. Don't ever forget they did all that to him. Even Walmart pulling his products off the shelf for no reason, really, other than we don't want to associate with somebody who's saying, we need to question what happened in the 2020 election. So help Mike Lindell, help me, help the show stay on the air by buying some products at mypillow.com/LEE, mypillow.com/Lee. Talking about alternative media, there are people on the left too, like this guy critiquing a Donald Trump ad for 2024. David Pakman, I think. David Pakman. Okay, check this out.
Donald Trump has published a campaign ad. It is a campaign ad essentially arguing Joe Biden's old and gas prices and other prices are high. I don't believe that this is going to be a winning strategy for Trump. And I'm going to explain why in a moment. Donald Trump publishing this to Truth Social There's a bunch of music on it. What I'm going to try to do is just kind of describe what's going on and the gist of this as we listen to it. All right, so let's take a look.
Okay.
So here's Trump walking at his inauguration, looking strong, talking to Kim Jong-un, looking very powerful and very strong.
Because he is powerful and very strong.
Talking to Putin, looking very powerful and very strong. Of course, we know there's very little strength here.
Wait, I'm
Shots
sorry,
of
what?
gas
We
prices.
know that there's very little strength there? Okay, whatever, Dave Pacman, go for it.
Under $2. And then Trump dancing on stage, which just makes him look dumb, to be perfectly frank, but okay.
It'd be perfectly frank.
Now it cuts to Biden tripping on Air Force One with clown music.
Right.
And then Biden tripping somewhere else, and then Biden tripping and falling somewhere else.
Yeah, thanks for making our point.
Biden talking to people off stage in a clip that was used to make him look like he didn't know what was going on.
It was used because it
Pictures of high gas prices, so now it's a gas price argument.
That's right. Over $7 a gallon, by the way, in many areas of California.
Inflation reports on
true.
screen.
All true.
And then lastly, a picture of, I think this is Joe Biden.
Yes, that is Joe Biden. If you would have watched the whole thing, goofball.
At the beach, although I'm not totally sure.
That
so
was
listen,
hold on a second. That was when Biden was relaxing on the beach while over 100 illegals stormed the gates and overran a National Guard post where they were stationed to keep them from overrunning the border. But they tore down fences and they completely overran the National Guard while Biden was sunning himself on the beach. That's what that was all about. David, go ahead.
This is a very interesting campaign ad for a bunch of different reasons.
Really?
First of all, this is a really simplistic view of gas prices. As I've said before, I don't attribute much credit or blame on gas prices to presidents. Presidents can do very little on gas prices.
Until they shut down the XL pipeline and until they start making it to where they can't drill on soil of the United States of America, and still they start shutting down the supply of oil that was coming in that made us dominant. We were supplying our own energy needs so much so and so effectively and so well under Donald Trump that we were selling our oil to other nations. David.
It relates to global demand. Is there a pandemic? Is there a war? Global factors, OPEC decisions, so many different things.
Unless, of course, we're making our own, and then we don't have to rely on any of them and let them control our own market. Right, David?
On inflation, inflation is actually down dramatically. So on the economic side, the economy is actually fine. More and more voters are...
Wait a minute, inflation is down and the economy's fine, according to David Pacman.
...understanding and believing that. We did have a period during which it wasn't connecting. The economy was more or less fine by our traditional metrics. Still problems, but the economy was fine, but voters weren't believing that.
They weren't believing that because they weren't experiencing that. What world do you live in?
That has started to shift over the last 4 to 6 weeks.
It has?
And I believe that if the economy stays as it is right now, and the election next year is a referendum on the economy.
Yes, if it all stays the way it is now, I'm going to be going broke about 4:30 this afternoon.
I think Biden wins. Okay. Then we get to Biden is old. Okay. Yeah, Biden's old. Trump is old and obese and doesn't exercise.
Obese? Doesn't exercise? I see videos of him out on the golf course all the time. Obese? That's obese to you, son?
And eats a terrible diet.
He eats a terrible diet. You know that for sure, do you? You follow him around. What, do you get a menu sent to him of what a former president eats every day?
And lies about his health.
He lies about his health. While your guy will not even take a cognitive test. Go ahead, David, go ahead.
And actuaries have looked at Trump and Biden and statistically expect Biden to live longer. And also, I trust the people around Biden to make good decisions.
You do? The unelected bureaucrats, you trust them to make good decisions like what they've done so far for the past 3.5 years? What is wrong with you? And as for Biden is older, but he's healthier, is what you're suggesting? My grandmother lived to be 101 years old. She had no idea who I was for the last 20 years of her life. So living a long time does not indicate your cognitive skills, son.
I would not trust the Trump loyalists around Trump if he were to become president again to make good decisions. So, if again, old.
Don't forget, we had 4 years of unprecedented economic success under President Trump, but you're not going to trust those people.
And economy.
Old
A
and
referendum on the economy,
Okay.
if things don't get worse in the next 11 months, I believe Biden wins. And if you say, do you want the old guy or the old obese guy who doesn't exercise and eats a terrible diet and lies to us about his health, I go with the guy who is merely old.
You want the nutbag, the doddering goofball who seems to live to eat ice cream.
If I'm missing something, I want you to let me know and tell me exactly what I'm missing and why you see it differently.
I just did. You know who we need to get into the mix right now? You know who we need to talk to? We need to get her perspective, somebody who deals with money all the time. That's her life and her livelihood is Melanie Colette on Do Not Talk. Hit it.
Yep, here he comes. Riding his trusted steed through the Sierra foothills as he brings you the news. He calls himself
Charlie!
What you doing, Charlie?
Sorry, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie, there you are. And look how cute you are. Yeah!
Hey, Charlie. What's with the dark glasses?
And now, here he is, a man of God, living in a world of Disney.
Ow! Charlie!
Charlie Simons.
Charlie bit me.
I can't hear you.
Oh, shoot.
I got you now.
I muted my microphone and then forgot to turn it back on again.
All I heard was music. It's okay. I can hear you now. I was like, maybe when he brings me in, I'll be able to hear him. And that's exactly what happened. It's okay.
Here's what happened in April.
I've been there.
I lost my producer of almost 2 years. And so until things change and the Lord opens up some doors for what's going to continue with this show, I've been trying to run it myself. I'm way too ADHD to be in control of this kind of thing.
I knew exactly what happened. I've been there. I knew exactly what happened. That's why I was just chilling. That's why I wasn't panicking, because I knew what happened.
I wanted to, let's pick it up from here. I love what you do, Melanie Colette, and I'm so glad you're back on the show. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being had.
I'm glad I had a moment. I'm glad I had.
Thank you for setting me up for my favorite joke. You saw what I ran with that guy who was doing his critique of a Donald Trump ad.
He really lives in a world of delusion. He really does. Oh, all Joe Biden is old. He's not lying about his health. He won't do a cognitive test, which is standard, especially. Listen, I'm 53. My doctor does a cognitive test, but you're not doing a cognitive test on an 80-year-old. That's the president of the United States. I'm going to call foolishness on that. But Trump is lying about his health. Stop that.
It's
Stop it.
scary.
They really think we're all fools. They
Yesterday, I was
really
talking
do.
with a friend of mine who's a pastor, and we were talking about the current state of affairs and how easily people, as Mark Twain said brilliantly, it's it's easy to fool. It's easier to fool people than it is to convince them they've been fooled.
Absolutely.
It's brilliant.
Because
Um,
nobody wants to feel like they've been fooled. So they
it's
will
like
buck against it.
it's like they're in a demonic haze.
Well, there is that too.
And I know, like me, you are a follower of Christ Jesus. Just one more many reasons why I love you, and I want to have you on the show because you come from that perspective, and you know that we do have to make our. As one shirt I saw yesterday at a particular event I was at, I loved it. It said, uh, "Dirty work, clean hands."
Mm.
I love that. So we've got to be honest in the way we make money, but we don't worship it. People say the root of all evil is money. No, no, no. Bible doesn't say that. The love of money is the root of all.
Exactly. I think I posted that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, money's
Like
just
one
a
of the
tool.
most misquoted scriptures ever.
It truly is. It
Yeah, it
truly
really
is.
is.
The love of money is the root of all evil, and I don't love it. It's just a commodity. It's just like anything that we need to survive and operate in our current state of affairs and in the world we live in now. You got to have it to keep going, and I don't want to make it from somebody else. As my grandfather always taught me, son, I don't want anything that I can't earn on my own. That's how I was brought up. But we have easily over 10 million people now have come into this country illegally with their hands out. They're getting $5,000, $10,000 EBT cards, debit cards. It's just got this money on the. You're here illegally. You broke the law. Getting in here. Here, let's give you some money, and let's give you all kinds of free services. And you have these. What do they call them? NGOs, non-governmental organizations, who are taking your donations, Catholic Church, and using it to clothe these people so they come across the border in nice, clean clothes, because they know that if they came across the border dressed how they were when they showed up at the NGO booth or wherever they show up to get their neat, clean clothes and their free phone and everything else, that we would look at them and go, "Ew, they're dirty. We don't want to let them in." But instead, it's all presented as, "Oh, they're just dreamers. They just want a better life." Really? Including the people who are coming over from China, including the people who are coming over from hostile Islamic controlled countries who are just walking across the border? Do they just want a better life too? Or
And these
are there
people
nefarious things going on?
won't listen. You know, I was trying to explain to someone the other day who's a professed Christian about the Chinese nationals that are coming over here. And I'm like, do you enjoy going to church? Because if you do, it's a problem. Like I understand that you don't like Trump, but do you understand the number? Oh well, Chinese nationals were always coming over here. Okay, but the number of Chinese nationals. Do you understand that they're not even allowed to have a Bible app in their country? Do you
Mhm.
understand that when you go over there, people take burner phones because they go through your phone? That your hotel room is under surveillance when you're there to travel on business. Do you understand that? Do you understand that they have a 25-year plan to take over the world and make their country, make the rest of the world like their country, where you don't have the things like religious freedom? And that is why this border is a problem. Forget South America for a second. China is a much bigger worry, in my opinion. I did during my master's program, I did a paper on Google and Google in China. I had no idea. Yeah, your iPhone over there doesn't come with a Bible app. Not only does it not come, you'll get arrested if you have one. Not even allowed to have a Bible. And this is the thing that Americans, you're so concerned about his mean tweets. You're so concerned about the way he talks. Get it together. You're not understanding the gravity of this situation. We have they have secret police stations here. They threaten their own citizens' families when they are over here in this country. They threaten to kill them and do kill them
Yeah.
if they get out of line in our country. That's a problem.
Here in California, we busted a biolab, a Chinese biolab. Why are they doing experimentation with chemical warfare on United States soil in the state of California? And
They have Chinese police stations in New York City. Secret like they're not the police, but they are policing their own people in our country. And there are people who do not find that problematic or who find mean tweets more problematic than that. It is the height of naivete.
it's weird,
It
isn't it?
really is.
You live in New Jersey,
I do.
and the this past weekend, what were you involved with?
So, 45 was in Cape May County, New Jersey, where full transparency, I'm an elected official. I'm a county commissioner here, and I actually work for elected officials here in Cape May County. And I'm also the vice chair of our county GOP, Cape GOP, we call it, Cape May County GOP. And he was here in Wildwood. It's the second time he's been here. I'm in Jeff Van Drew's congressional district, and of course, Congressman Van Drew is the congressman who very famously, or I would say, I'm sure the Democrats would say infamously, switched parties because they tried to force him to impeach Trump, and he said, no, it's wrong. Now, what people don't know, may or may not know about Congressman Van Drew is that he's always been a moderate. One of the reasons why Republicans had a hard time beating him with a Republican candidate is that he was a very moderate. He always legislated very moderately. So Republicans voted for him all the time. He's a public servant. He's just somebody who always cared about the people and cared about doing the right thing and doing right by his constituents. And so Republicans voted for him over and over and over again, and we could never beat him. In fact, in the seat that I hold, the last Democrat to hold that seat was one and only Jefferson Van Drew. So and that was like 20 years ago. So that just tells you, I think, kind of how moderate he always has been, and the left has just moved further and further left, and they really tried to force him to vote for impeachment, and he put his foot down and said absolutely not. And he was like, I'm done.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
I have this conversation with my fellow Republicans and conservatives all the time when they talk about, oh, I don't trust him because he was a Democrat. I'm going, whoa, 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 whoa. Did you like Ronald Reagan? You think he was a good conservative? Did he run the country that way? He was a flaming lefty. Not only that, I mean, he literally was the president of the Screen Actors Guild in Hollywood. He
Right.
was way on the left. How about Donald Trump? Donald Trump at one time, he was all on the left too. You're telling me that people can't wake up? That's what
I
we're
don't
always
understand.
asking. Please wake up. And here you got somebody who actually woke up, but you're still going to run them down and you don't trust them?
Right. I don't understand that argument, particularly with Congressman Van Drew, when where he put his foot down was impeachment. That was not, they had the majority at the time. That was not an easy lift
No, heck
for
no.
him to
No,
leave the
and he lost
safety and
all his friends,
security.
and his one-time friends were suddenly his enemies because they attack.
Oh,
They attack like piranha.
they told him, he tells the story all the time. He's told it publicly, so I don't think I'm out of school here. They told him, you will obey. That's what they said. And he was like, I'm from Jersey. That's not how it works.
Attaboy. How did you become a conservative? Were you brought up that way? I mean,
Always was not brought up that way. I'm the only one in my family, well, that's out. I do know of others, but they're in the closet, so to speak.
how much pushback have you received because you are black and you're supposed to be a Democrat?
Oh, all the time. I get mean. Matter of fact, there's a picture that I posted on Instagram of me and Deneen Borelli in studio at Newsmax. It was the first time I had run into her there, maybe a year ago, and somebody just, I guess, discovered it. It's been on Instagram for a while, and said and posted under it, "Oh, they're white. People say things like that all the time. Just say mean."
Larry Elder
Um,
out here in California when he was running for governor during the recall election a couple of years ago, the Los Angeles Times, the big headline was the black face of white supremacy.
yeah, yeah. I love it. It happens. Oh yeah, I've been called every name in the book.
I'll bet you have.
Coon, bed wench, white supremacist, self-hating white supremacist. Yeah, you name it. Yeah.
You didn't get Oreo? Oreo's
All
passe
right.
now,
Well,
huh?
now actually, now Oreo is really old.
Black on the
Um,
outside, white on the inside.
when I was married to actually my ex-husband was my high school sweetheart, and I remember walking down the street one day, actually in Wildwood, many moons ago. We were in high school, and somebody yelled at me Oreo across the street. That was many moons ago. Yeah.
Susan,
Yeah. That's
I
a
think
true
you're
story.
awesome.
That is an absolute true story. I've not been called that recently, but when I had the white husband, I did get called that a couple of
I'll bet
times.
you did. I'll bet
I
you
I
did.
care not. I care no
May
more about that
may I share
now
this
than I
with
did
you
then.
too? I've said this many times in my life experience. The most racist people I've ever known in my life are not white.
And when I say that, people get super mad. But I tell people all the time, some of the most hateful things that have been said about me on social media has been said in my DMs or to me by people who look like me. Somebody sent me an instant message. Just like imagine seeing somebody just you see a TV clip of somebody just expressing their opinion on social media, and you don't even follow this person, but you take the time to send them an instant message and tell them how they're not black, they hate black people, and you should hate yourself and you should drop dead. Like listen, I kind of admire having that kind of time.
You wish you had that kind of time.
I wish I had like the time and bandwidth to be messaging random strangers on
Mm,
the internet and being hateful. But I don't even have that kind of hate in my heart. Like, I see people say things that I patently disagree with all the time. It never occurs to me to send them a private message calling them names and being nasty. It just doesn't. I don't really get it. Although I kind of always think that that's like demonic because it's so irrational. And whenever people have that kind of irrational behavior, you have to consider the demonic spiritual influence.
yeah,
Because why else would a reasonable person do that?
no.
It's not reasonable.
Well, everything I need to know about you happened when you said yes to first being on my radio show, and I think I wrote in there, "I'm a conservative like you." You agreed to do it. You're like, yeah, right. Okay, we'll see.
Well,
Uh,
listen, I'll talk to almost anybody. Almost.
almost.
But especially conservatives. But I'll talk to someone who isn't. I'm not afraid to talk to someone who isn't a conservative. I'm not. I don't care.
Me neither.
Now, quite honestly, I think they're afraid to talk to me a lot of times. Like I've definitely had people book my show and then back out at the last minute. I don't mind if you're a liberal, but I think the reason why they backed out because when you go on different shows, you do a little research on the show, right? You do a little research on the host, and I think what happened is they did a little research on me. So I'm always kind of low key prepared for a liberal to back out, even though like we might not even be talking necessarily about politics. We're probably talking about some public policy, but they know if they're going to say something crazy about, for example, the origins of inflation, that yeah, I'm going to give them the smoke. And so if you know you're not on the right side of that, then you probably made a good decision canceling that booking.
Let's dive into that pool of expertise that you live in and address what that David Pakman guy said about the economy when he said inflation is down and the economy's doing better. Really?
Well, President Biden recently told a big old fat lie about inflation being at 9% when he came into office, and that's just absolutely
I
not
know.
true. It was at
That
something
was
like
crazy.
1.9%. So that just was patently untrue and absolute. It was just not the truth.
And I will remind you too, when when he came in, we were at the height of lockdown, and everybody living in fear from that manufactured flu virus that will remain unnamed because we're on YouTube right now, and I don't want to get kicked off because I want
Are you not
everyone
allowed
to
to
hear.
say that word? The C
We're not
word,
allowed to say that word,
which I thought
at least
the
if
C
you're a
word was something
conservative.
different, but okay.
But let's not forget that that businesses were shut down. Only the big corporate box stores were deemed essential. At least here in California. I don't know about where you were. Mom and pop
Listen,
places
where
ran out.
California goes, New Jersey follows.
But then, yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
then there were the, don't forget the supply chain problems. So prices go up when there's more demand and there's not enough product. Prices automatically go up. So maybe that's how he's justifying it, but it is not the total picture. It's a lie by omission.
It's a total lie by omission, but it wasn't even 9%. That's the bottom line. It was 1.9%, not 9%. It went up to 9% after he took office. That's the fact of the matter. Okay. So that was a complete and total lie. And then the policies that he put in place were highly inflationary, starting with the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline. Highly inflationary because that caused prices of gas to rise, right?
Spike, yeah.
And what people don't realize is the tumbling effect that increase in oil and gas has. So, for example, how do products get from point A to point B? What
Trucks,
fuels
ships,
the
trains.
trucks and the ships and the cars to get products from point A to point B? Well, that's all gasoline. What are plastics made out of? They are made out of oil. So when the costs of all those products go up, it's very, very simple. It costs the manufacturers more to make them, more to transport them, then that cost gets transferred onto the consumer. That is how that works. And that's inflation. Then you also have simultaneously his other policies, his economic policies, where he continually infused money into the economy. And anytime you keep piling free money and printing all this money and putting it in the economy, you lower the value of the dollar, which means you need more dollars to buy things. So, and that causes prices to go up. So he did all these things simultaneously. And then you wonder why things like hot dogs, as President Trump said over the weekend, why the cost of that is up 45%. So there's the rate of inflation. And this is another thing that people conflate. You have the rate of inflation, which is what we were referring to earlier when we talked about the rate of inflation being 1.9 and then going up to 9%, and now it's going down. But understand from a very basic perspective, when we're talking about the rate of inflation, I know you do this, but for the benefit of those in your audience who may not, the rate of inflation is the rate at which prices are rising. So when the rate at which prices rise goes down, that does not mean that the cost goes down. So for example, if this bottle of water, for example, was $5 because of inflation, it's still $5. Even when the rate of inflation goes down, that just means the time it takes for this to cost $5.50 it's going to take less time, but the price is still rising. So, so just
Excuse me.
in my other life, I used to be a teacher, so hopefully that was a good
Yeah.
example.
Well, thank you for walking me through it. That mumbling, fumbling thing that some people call our president has been blaming corporate greed. Prices are all high because the corporations are so greedy.
Corporations are not charities. Corporations are in the business of making money. They're not being greedy. What I don't think people realize about corporations is, number one, the level of risk that's involved financially, legally, even. They don't understand the concept of overhead, of being able to navigate all the regulatory issues that are involved with a big corporation. It's a significant amount of risk. People invest a significant amount of money into these companies in order to mitigate that risk and handle all of those things, the number of jobs that these people are responsible for, which involves providing health care for these people, making sure they have a safe working environment. All of that stuff costs money. So what happens is corporations get people to invest money in their companies. And the reason why they're investing money in those companies is because they expect something called a return on that investment. They're not in there. They're not investing in businesses as a charity project. It's to make money.
And don't
They're
forget
not
how much
being
money it
greedy.
costs. Don't forget how much more money it costs them to get the product to their store
Right.
because of the inflation, the tremendous fuel prices, and products, if they
Yes.
can even get them.
And you're like, oh, well, $2 billion is too much money for them to make. How dare they? Who are you to say that? Who are you to decide what the threshold is? And then once we start deciding for other people and other companies what the threshold for too much money is, they're going to start deciding it for your pockets as well. Now you make $100,000 a year, and that's not that much money. Oh, maybe they'll decide that it's just like President Biden decided that 400,000 is the threshold, but that's plenty for you to make, and now you should be paying your fair share.
That's communism.
It is.
They worship at the feet of Apple, which all their products are now made in China. So I don't use them because I don't trust them. They're made in China. I don't do things made in China, and but yet the federal government has now been targeting them, forcing them to make a better product. Like, what the what? This is not a
Well,
government
you
entity. You
could.
don't get to tell them the quality of if their product is not good, then hopefully we will wake up and stop buying it until they make a better product. But I mean, what
They
does the federal government think they're
really
doing? And the media has ignored that, by the way.
they really don't know what they're doing at all.
Mm-mm.
Maybe someone in the Biden administration, particularly that's running their economic policy, should read The Art of the Deal. They have no idea what they're doing. They have no idea what they're doing at all. That is not how any of this works, and they have no idea. Did you see the video? I wish I could remember the gentleman's name, who is in charge, who is one of Biden's economic advisors and had no idea about very simple definitions such as quantitative easing and inflation and things like that, and got caught, flat-footed with his pants down, not being able to explain very simple economic principles. And this is the person who is advising President Biden. And now we know why our economy is so screwed up if this is one of the people that he's listening to.
That's one thing I hear a lot is, well, they're just, it's so bad because they're incompetent. And you're suggesting that, but to me, there's something deeper than that.
Well,
I don't think it's all by accident.
I think the people who are running things are definitely not incompetent. And I think that that's why they don't care that somebody like that economic advisor is incompetent, because that's not who's actually running things. Just like, I've heard this argument about, the trials and indictments that are going on with President Trump, and how, oh, you're saying that, President Biden's a bumbling idiot, but you're simultaneously saying that he's the mastermind behind
No,
all of these
oh,
trials.
no, I didn't say
Nobody
that.
said that.
If I
Nobody said that.
suggested that, I didn't mean to. No.
Nobody's no, right. And I'm saying nobody suggested that President Biden is the mastermind
No, he's
behind the
always been a
intricate
bad
details.
and an ineffective politician for half a century, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, no one suggested that.
You know,
Let's
one
not
thing
do
I've
that.
never understood, maybe you can explain it to me, these numbers. When something doubles in price, which almost everything at the grocery store has, fuel has tripled, quadrupled in price.
The interest rate, the mortgage interest rate has tripled.
How do you still call it like, oh, 9%? What, everything is double? Isn't that 100%?
Because
Things have been inflated in price
they're
by 100%.
because you're referring to two different numbers, and that's what I was talking about earlier. You're referring to the rate of inflation, and people conflate the two. And the media is very good at conflating these things. So the rate of inflation is 9%. So that's the rate, the pace, right, at which inflation is rising, as which cost is going up. But the measurement of how much, for example, the price of a hot dog has gone up from the time President Biden became president to now is a different number. You know what I mean? If it started off being 25 cents and now it's 50 cents, well, it's gone up 100%. Those are two different numbers,
Yeah.
and people seem to conflate those things. And that's why the media describes these things, but pulls the okey doke all the time. Well, it's only at 9%. And I think a lot of people are thinking in their heads, okay, well, if it's only 9%, then that means if something costs $1 now, it's only $1.10. No. That is not what that means at all.
But yet that's what the media and the left keeps pushing out there because it doesn't sound as bad. does it?
Right. Well, now, I did hear somebody from CNN the other day have kind of a stroke of honesty and say, but grocery prices are up like 25-30%. She was speaking honestly, understanding that the prices where things are right now are connected to the rate of inflation, but it does not accurately describe what the current price is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and when they say 25, even when she said 25 and 30% from as opposed to what, 6 months ago? I mean, in my world, prices have doubled and tripled.
Mm-hmm. They really have. And you wonder, and then this dude's going to say, and this dude meaning President Biden, is going to say, but people have the money to pay for it. That is not true, because that's when you have to start talking about the wage increase. There's a phrase for it, and can't come up with it right now. But it's the number that represents the rate at which wages are increasing. And if that is not keeping up with the pace of inflation, then you're in the hole. So, for example, if the rate of wage increase is at 5% and inflation is at 9%, then people are 4% in the hole. They're still taking a 4% L.
I like how Dr. Phil put it. He said it now costs you $11,000 per year more to continue buying the things that you've been buying all along. $11,000. How many of you, and then he asked the audience, how many of you, show of hands, got an $11,000 a year raise?
Exactly. And now they're about to let the Trump tax cuts expire, which will affect more than people who make more than $400,000 a year.
I know you guys are talking about that on Newsmax. Do you see it anywhere else, them talking about that those tax cuts are about to expire?
I've seen them talking about it. I've seen them talking about it on Fox. I've heard them talking about it on the radio a little bit. Because it really is going to affect everyone. It's going to affect everyone.
And it's going to happen before the November election, but they're trying to push it off to where it doesn't happen now until after the election. But you got to have a Congress that's going to be on board with that. And thank God, even though we have just a seat of one majority in the House now, which is bizarre. How'd that happen?
Listen. I don't know. I don't know what their calculus is in the House right now. I really don't. And while, like, listen, I'm a fan of MTG. I get what she's doing, but if you're going to be part of a party, the party has to get itself together. You can't, be throwing grenades inside your own tent. You got to, and if you're going to, you better have a plan. I was
I'm with you.
really mad.
I'm
about-
glad you brought that up. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking that how ticked off I was about when they threw out McCarthy. Not because I loved McCarthy so much. I'm not saying that there necessarily didn't need to be a change, but the fact that they didn't have a plan. Like your Congress. And listen, I am in a political organization full of rock stars. My chairman is a rock star. His name is Michael Donahue. We don't play games. We're very organized. And my first thing when I see like poor leadership, I'm always thinking about my chairman, who's amazing. And I assumed that when they blew up the speakership, that they had a flipping plan, that they had the votes, right? That they knew when they got rid of McCarthy that they had the votes to replace someone else. And the fact that we went 3 weeks with no speaker is just not okay.
And here we could have had Jim Jordan.
Right.
And they didn't give him the votes. I'm like,
You
son
don't?
of a gun, what the heck? So instead we got Mike Johnson. Nobody had ever heard of him, out of Louisiana. Nobody
Right.
really knew his track record or knew anything of him. But I do know he's a follower of Christ Jesus, so I got to trust him for that. I do believe he is a true believer and follower. He hasn't done anything to show me that that's not true. So I'm glad he's there. I love Marjorie Taylor Greene. Green? How long in the Republican Party have we been screaming about we need more people like her, like Ted Cruz, like Matt Gaetz? We need more people like Jim Jordan. We need people who are vocal, who are loud, who are going to get stuff done.
And
How
we
long have we
do.
cried for that? And
And we
then we get some
do.
people in there who do those kind of things, and we all attack. Our own party has attacked MTG horribly, and I'm like, wait a minute, you were
And
screaming for people like her. Now I
we
agree
are,
with you, though,
but
doing it during an election year, huge mistake. I'm sorry she did that.
well,
It
yes.
didn't work. I mean, it failed, and I'm kind of glad actually. But I'm never going to tell Marjorie Taylor Greene, you stop being so diligent and making sure our party does what it says it's going to do.
And I'm with her on that. And I'm with her on that. And all of the things that she said, I'm with her on that. Here's where I will give the Democrats credit. Okay? I hate to do it.
I
Here's
know.
where I'll give them
I
credit.
know what you're going to say too, and
You
you're
know
right.
what I'm about to say.
You're right.
This is the thing that I don't love about this is the thing that I don't love about the right in our establishment. I promise you that the Democrats are having the same kind of arguments behind closed doors. I promise you they are, but they're behind closed doors. I promise you there are some knockdown, drag it out, because had Jeff Van Drew not told us the story of how they tried to bully him into impeaching, into voting for impeachment, we would have never known that conversation was taking place. And quite honestly, have you heard that story anywhere?
No.
Nope. I only know because I've heard him tell it several times in person at different events that I've attended. And he's from where I live. He's from Cape May County. His house actually is about 5 miles from my house. So I've known him. I knew him long before he was a Republican. Everybody knows Jeff around here. It's a very small town that we live in. It's a very small place. So, but you never heard that story, did you? Nor should we. We should not hear that MTG wanted to get rid of Mike Johnson. We should not know about that as a public. And that's where I admire the Democrats. They are very, very disciplined when it comes to dissent within their party. And when there is dissent, when somebody dissents publicly, you can tell that they were taken out back and whooped, because the next day, they get in front of that camera and they have their whole act together. Am I lying?
And if we could only see them walking up to the camera before the whole press conference starts, we see them probably limping.
They got a brand new attitude
because they got a
when walk in
beating.
front of that camera the next day. Like, oh my goodness, I forgot myself. Actually, we're doing exactly what the party said we were doing, or the party has decided that we're doing. Yeah, they get their whole act together. Now the squad, that's a different, that's a whole different. They're a bunch of demonized radicals, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they can be controlled, but they're not big enough. Like, the MAGA movement is big enough to move the needle, right? And in my opinion, the whole thing with being able to remove a speaker, or even move to remove a speaker with one vote, was just dumb to begin with. Like, why would you put something like that in place?
I was very disappointed in Mike Johnson when he rubber stamped that aid package that sent another $80 billion that we don't have to Ukraine. I'm like, what?
I was too.
What is
but you
going
gotta
on?
do
Mike Johnson, what the heck are you doing?
You got to do that work behind closed doors. You got to agree to do that work behind closed doors, because all you're doing, it's like parents, right? Argue it out with how you're going to deal with the kids behind closed doors, and you come out and you're a united front. Because where there is division, there's opportunity.
Right.
So what's the dude's name? Hakeem Jeffries said on a show last week that they like keeping Mike Johnson in because they've been very productive in getting the laws passed that they want to get passed. He's not wrong.
And that's not an accident that he said that either. I mean, that was a slap at the Republican Party hardcore, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it defeats the
Thanks for
purpose
giving
of
us a
having
guy
a
that's
majority.
giving us everything we want. Well done.
So I have no problem with MTG having the problems that she has. I have no problem with her speaking on
Right.
the policy problems that she has. The problem that I have is when we're going after each other as individuals and we're going after leadership in public. That is where I have an issue. You can message that you have a problem with the policy, with the bill. You can very vocally vote against it because you have that one vote that you have properly representing your constituents. I have no issue with that whatsoever, as she should. But when we start attacking each other's positions, that's where I have an issue because we're part of a party and we should not be doing anything that is destructive to the party, in my opinion.
I so want to ask you your opinion too about why we've been so ineffective at impeaching people who are literally committing treasonous acts and getting them removed from their
Yeah,
positions of power.
I wish
But
I had the answer for that. I don't know.
I don't want to take up my time with you on that, but I'm not going to go so long and have you on the
Because
show
they
again. I got to have you more often, but there's so much about finances, which is your area of expertise, that I want to talk about.
sure.
There are collapse of banks that the media is now no longer reporting, and lending
They're not reporting a
institutions.
lot.
People are scared. Those of us on the streets, what are we going to do with our money? My mom comes to mind, has some money in an annuity, and they guarantee 4%, which is nothing. That's dismal, but they guarantee it despite what the market does. So she clings to that.
Does she have a
And as
buffer?
say
We'll
it
talk
again.
about that later.
Say it
You
again.
can have annuities with a buffer, which means you're like not responsible for the first part of a certain percentage of the loss, depending on the buffer and how the annuity is structured. But I
Well, I was
digress.
talking with a friend of hers who's kind of like her financial advisor in her church. And I said, let me tell you, if I had that money and it was mine, I would be taking it all out. I'd be putting it in cash. I might buy some gold and silver with it. I don't know. I still am not convinced that that's the way to go because do you know how to barter with gold and silver?
And there is and there's the thing, and it's only as good as what you can get for it, right?
Right.
So, and then what is that person going to do with gold and silver once they have it? What is it? So it really does still hinge on the dollar and the strength of the U.S. economy, right? And what is kind of bizarre is how strong the economy is on a lot of levels as far as being sustainable, but it is not sustainable for individuals. Is the problem?
It's not
Uh,
sustainable for the federal government either. Congressman Chip
well,
Roy
not
out of
with how
Texas
much debt we're in.
he
No.
just Chip Roy just disclosed that the government is spending double the amount that it is taking in, which means the Treasury's literally just printing money that's worthless and has nothing behind it, and that is setting up for disastrous depression. 1929 was nothing compared to what we might be facing.
No, and that's a fact. And you are not wrong about that. And then when you look at who we owe money to, who we're borrowing money from, China, we
China.
should, if I was advising someone, a personal client, on their personal money, and they told me that they had this much debt, you don't have room in your budget for buildings and new walkways and these things that this pork that we put into these bills to do real serious. You don't have extra money. It's like someone who in some serious debt and she's spending $300 a month getting her nails and hair done. Ma'am,
Right.
you do not have that money.
Right.
That's what I want to say to the United States. You don't have building money. You don't have fancy building money. You don't have fancy sign money. You don't have that money for the accoutrements. You don't have money for that. You have money for the essentials. You have money for the bare minimum.
Which is why I loved President Trump. And again, as I told you on the air the first time I had you on, I was not in his camp. I was not a fan. I
I
didn't
wasn't
want that
either.
at all.
Yeah.
I was a Scott Walker guy, and then he dropped out like right away. I'm like, what the heck? What happened? And then I
I
was like,
was a
well,
Rubio girl. I was actually vice chair
I was Ted
of his
Cruz.
presidential
I
in
was
New
all about
Jersey.
Ted Cruz from that. I did not want Donald Trump. But then when he got in there, because I've always said this is a business. The government is a business, and it needs to be run by business people. And here we have a successful businessman who gets the job done. Like you said, Art of the Deal, you mentioned his book earlier, brilliant. And he ran his presidency that way and turned this nation around in a way that we had been dragged through a recession for 8 years with Obama complaining that it was Bush's fault, and doing everything he could to continue it happening. I started realizing something's happening on purpose, and I do believe the whole ultimate goal is to bring down the United States of America as a world power.
Oh, sure. And to make us a global, to do the whole globalist thing. That's exactly
One
what it
world
is.
government. One
Yeah.
world government.
And,
So
and,
here-
and really, it's biblical. If you read the Bible, you're not surprised that this is what they're trying to do.
But
Anybody
we-
who's ever read the Bible,
But we
is not
can
shocked that this
protect
is where
ourselves
we're
from
headed.
what's coming to the rest of the world. We can protect ourselves here in the United States of America. We can be isolated because of the constitutional republic that we were gifted, that I do believe was divinely inspired. Never before in the history of the world has the individual citizen had such powerful say, even with just one vote, in who's
Sure.
going to be running the show.
Yep.
So we've gotten the government that we deserve. Many of we Republicans have sat back and went, la, 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 la. I just want things to get back to normal. Sorry, there's no normal coming back. But
There
we
is no
can
normal coming back.
shift course, shift direction this coming first Tuesday of November, 2024. And if you're not registered to vote, I'm going to call you out right now. You're part of the problem. You need
Understand.
to register to vote.
Understand that voting at the end of the day is a numbers game. If you are not registered to vote, if you decide not to vote, then you are essentially, when it comes down to the number, you are voting for the opposition. And if the opposition is not what you want, then you better get your butt together, register to vote, and make sure that you vote. Not participating is not a number, is not an option. That is still a number statistically. I don't have time to explain it, just trust me on this.
Yeah. We get the government. You know who gets the government they want? The people who show up.
That's right.
So I don't know about New Jersey, but in California, if you're not registered to vote, it's registertovote.ca.gov. Registertovote.ca.gov. Please get registered. Even if you're no party preference, even if you're independent, I don't care how you register, just register to vote and vote this coming November. I hope
Yes.
you register as a Republican because we could use you in the primaries. The
And
Republican
remember,
primaries.
stop being a wuss. Look at the policy, not the people. Stop
Right.
being emotional. You wouldn't pick your surgeon emotionally. Do you want a surgeon that's got real shaky hands and is a really nice guy? Or do you want a surgeon that's an expert in his field, has 100% success rate, but is kind of a jerk? That's what you're choosing.
I say that all the time too. Give me a doctor who's got terrible bedside manner, but who's the best you can get.
I had a
That's what I want.
specialist that way, and I was totally fine with it.
Exactly.
He was a terrible bedside manner, but an excellent surgeon, and I'm glad I picked him.
Melanie Collette, she's a regular contributor and very valued by Newsmax, and I'm seeing you all over the place, and rightly so, because you're fantastic. Let me
Oh,
ask
thank
you a question, and find her, by the way. It's a Money Talk with Melanie, right?
Actually, the show is relaunching as How Money Works with Melanie Collette. It's relaunching next month on 98.7 The Coast and anywhere you can find your podcast. In the meantime, follow me at NJGOP Diva on X or How Money Works with Melanie Collette on Facebook.
Say that last part of the one on X. I didn't understand that.
NJGOP Diva on X.
NJ.
GOP Diva.
Okay, on X. Okay, got it. I'm going to ask you a question here that if you don't have an answer, you'll tell me you don't have an answer.
I'll do my best.
I do believe that we have catastrophic financial collapse coming. It's not sustainable what's happening, especially here in California. And as California goes, it's now been reported we're almost $80 billion in debt. And that's coming from the government itself. So, of course, I don't trust it. I think it's far
Oh, of
out.
course, yeah. Yeah.
But as California goes, so goes the rest of the nation, whether you like it or not. You might think you're protected way over there on the East Coast, but you're not. If this state financially collapses, there's going to be catastrophic, and it's going to spread throughout the entire nation. as we've seen time and time again. California is that powerful of an economy when it goes down. And that's why I do believe the left has done everything they can to own this state and operate it through the CCP. But if there's a catastrophic failure like that, this is going to be their opportunity to introduce this digital currency, isn't it?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It is it's a living nightmare. You should be frightened to death, and you should be trying to put a halt to that policy wise. You really should. Understand, do you recall in Canada when the people were protesting and they froze people's bank accounts because they all have this digital currency over
And
there?
Gives and Go and all the other ways to give, to contribute.
That's
That money was being stolen away by the Canadian government.
That's right. So they will be able to compel you to do what they want you to do, the government, by controlling your very existence. And that is how dangerous this is. And this is why people stop being naive and stop trusting the government and pay attention. But yeah, that digital currency is a problem. Like I dig it. It's all convenient, very all well and good that you can tap and pay for things, and that's great. But you can't let them have total control. Because, like I said, total control is what they had in Canada. And that's why when they wanted to compel those people to stop protesting vaccine mandates, they just froze their accounts. And that's what they're trying to do over here. And if you don't want that to happen, you better pay attention to the digital currency policies that are being put in place and not let this government make us completely digital. It is not a good thing.
I have people who are all into the Bitcoin thing, and they say, "Well, there's the good digital currency, and then there's the bad digital currency. We're all for the good digital currency." I'm like, the currency I have is I better be able to hold it and hand it to you in exchange for products and services. And if we bow down to that and we allow this to happen, as we had. This one thing I saw interviewing college campus kids about a mark on their hand or a mark on their forehead. They didn't bring up the forehead, it was just the hand. If you had something that was implanted in your hand and you could just hold it up to a scanner and everything's done through there, and
Digital tattoos. I saw a video about that the other day.
Yeah, you don't have to carry a debit card anymore. You don't have to worry about a password. You don't have to worry about it being stolen. It's all right there. Wouldn't that be great?
No, it actually would not be great.
Well, they all said it would. Oh,
Right.
yeah, that'd be
Well,
so convenient. I would love that.
And here's the thing, it's mostly children. And listen, I figured like if you're under 30, to me, you're a child. So you're a child. You haven't been around long enough. Understand? You haven't been around long enough to remember movies like The Minority Report, Logan's Run. Remember that movie? Those kind of movies. And kids, if you're young and you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sure it's still around. I'm sure you can still watch these movies. But this is where we're headed if you're not paying attention. And I read a statistic one time that said if you see the technology in a movie, that means we're like 20 years away from that technology actually existing. I'm still waiting for the thing on Star Trek that creates like meals where you can say, "Computer, make me a cheeseburger." I don't know where that is yet, but and I think they did away with the transporter thing because of the movie To Fly. And I get it.
That's right.
So they probably were like, maybe we should pump the brakes. We should pump the brakes on that technology, right? But
You're awesome. You're a treasure.
but so young people are like, what is she talking about? Trust me, look it up. It's worth it.
Yeah, please.
But in all seriousness, it's nice in concept. It is not nice when you consider that our government is evil and that our government is literally run by satanic, and I mean the global government. I don't mean individuals, but I mean by this, because obviously, like, I'm an elected official, I'm a part of the government. But I'm saying in general, as a whole, there are individuals who are in it to do good work and in it for the right reasons, but as a whole, as a concept, is a demonic entity. So the government,
Right.
not necessarily the elected officials, but the concept is a demonic entity, and they want to replace God.
They
and that
are
doesn't
doing
bother.
their father's work just as quickly as possible, for his
Ex-
time is short, and their
exactly.
father is the father of lies. That's
That's
just the
right.
bottom line.
That's
And that,
exactly
whether
right.
you will call it a cabal, Freemasons, the Illuminati, whatever you call them, it's all basically the same. They're doing
It
stuff.
is, and you got to resist
Hmm.
this urge to become one with it. It's one thing to be in it to fight. It is another thing to become one and become compliant with it.
Amen, sister.
You got to make sure that you're paying attention. If you're going to be in here, make sure that you're paying attention.
Real quick, that Trump rally that you were just a part of, you got to see the inner workings. I've been to one, but I've never been part of putting it all together like you were.
Now,
What's
I
that?
wasn't part of putting it all together, only
No.
in just knowing what the asks were from a county perspective because of
The
my
sheer
county.
logistics of it has got to be amazing.
It's amazing. I was sitting with our sheriff and he was, sharing a couple of things that I would never be able to tell publicly about the security aspects of it. And it's very, I don't think people realize, and I'm just basing that on the questions that people ask about the things that they would like to do. Oh, do you think you can have the president stop by here on the way? Like, no, no, we cannot do that. That's not the way.
Come
Oh yeah, we'll have
on.
him stop
My
by.
mom really likes him. Why can't he swing by and say hi to her?
Yeah, yeah. That happened a few
I
times.
know.
Oh, can I just go up to him and say like they don't realize the level of security. I don't think that they realize how dangerous being president of the United States is.
Yeah.
I really don't think they do. And the level of security that takes place. If you've ever been anywhere where the president speaks, you see some of it. But it takes a lot of people, hundreds of people, to do to staff and do one event like that in one place. And understand it, it was on the beach. So it was on, which I don't know if it is the biggest beach that we have, but I would argue it probably is. Wildwood's beach is huge, huge. So I think I can't really understate how big it is and how many people were there. And like I said, the logistics that it takes to pull something like that off. And we don't just do it. I mean, it takes more than just our officials. There were officials from all over the state and from neighboring places, and the Secret Service is what runs it, which is very funny because people will be like, "Oh, well, can't you just tell the campaign that you want to do blah blah blah?" I'm like, "Oh, you mean tell the Secret Service? Let me explain to you how the Secret Service works. You don't tell the Secret Service anything. The Secret Service tells you, and if you decide that you don't want to do what the Secret Service says, then they just arrest you. So that's how that works." The
My
Secret
one
Service
brush
comes in and tells us what to do, and we say, yes, Mr. President, that's exactly how we'll do that. That's
my one brush with Secret Service was
huh?
when my one brush with Secret Service was when I was working for ABC Radio and Television in San Francisco, and I was doing the morning show on their one of their radio stations, KSFO, and Barbara Bush was coming. Barbara Bush, shows you how long ago it was coming and was going to be speaking, going on the air with one of the talk show hosts, the midday guy, Ron Owens, on KGO. So not on my station, but right across the hallway. So I thought, well, I'm going to stick around after my morning show. Got off the air at 9 o'clock. She's not going to be here until the afternoon, but I'm going to stick around and see if I can at least meet her and say hi and
Nope.
get a photo with her or something. So it's getting later and later, and I'm doing the morning show. I've been up since 3:30 in the morning, actually 3, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go home. So I'm walking out. I've gone downstairs now, walking out the front lobby, and in through the doors comes Barbara Bush, surrounded by dudes.
Right.
And I'm thinking I'm all innocent. Because I trust everybody. I'm all innocent, and I go walking up to her with my hand out, going, "Mrs. Bush, my name is Charlie." Next thing I know, I am lifted up off the ground,
Yep. Sounds
and
right.
I am quickly taken to a stairwell with the door closed behind them. And then he's doing this, talking into the sleeve, and so on and so forth. And yes, he's secure, and yes, and go ahead, proceed, and blah blah blah, like that.
I'm
It happened.
surprised you got that close.
I'm not a small guy. And it was like I weighed nothing. These two dudes picked me up
The
and
Secret
whisked me
Service
into
played
a stairwell.
no games. No. Yeah, and people don't realize that before you come in contact with the president, you're fully like I got a picture with him at a Black Conservative Federation event in South Carolina a couple months ago. And that was arranged a week in advance. I received no less than 3 contacts with the Secret Service before that happened. And I had to pull a significant string to get that done. I
I'm
don't
glad you did.
I don't share how I got that done because I don't, you don't want everybody asking,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's no joke. You can't just like randomly walk up to a president. That is not how it works.
Melanie Collette has great advice, and from a Christian and conservative perspective, and that's her rarity. So if you want to find her, you want to ask her or purchase any of her books or whatever, get involved with what she's doing, I highly recommend it. One more time, where do we find you?
You can find me on Twitter or X at NJGOP Diva. You can find me on Facebook at How Money Works with Melanie Collette. You can also check out my website, howmoneyworks.com/Melanie Collette, and you'll find my website.
How money work? Well, there's got to be a .com in there somewhere.
Yep, howmoneyworks.com/Melanie Collette. Yep.
Okay, howmoneyworks.com.
Yep. I decided to streamline all my branding. Imagine that.
Awesome. You're so fantastic. I just love you. I got a bit of a crush on you. I got to be honest.
Oh, thank
All
you.
right,
Likewise.
I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for being had.
Indeed.
I am Charlie Simons, and you want to support the show, please do so by buying products at mypillow.com/Lee. My middle name is Lee. And mypillow.com/Lee. With that promo code, LEE, you can save up to 80% off right now. And you'll be helping this show stay on the air. So please, check it out. Like 100 different products now at his online store. Made in America. MyPillow.com. Thank you, Mike Lindell. MyPillow.com/Lee. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. Most importantly, though, America, bless God.